Today we are welcoming the lovely Debbie Solaris, who's an Arcturian Starseed, a very well-known galactic historian, and she's going to share her story of how she met the Arcturians and activated these wonderful gifts and abilities, and what she's learned about our galactic history. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Starseed Chats. I'm Lily Nova, and I have Debbie Solaris here with me, special guest. She's an ET contactee, a galactic historian. She really dives into the Akashic Records, so we'll go into how that started, her contact story, and then also dive into more of the galactic history. But before we get started, if you are interested in CBD, I have 10% off Hopewell Farms CBD, high quality CBD, and you can get that with the link in the description. And also, I have an Inner Earth channeled deep chakra healing Reiki session available in the description if you are interested in getting your chakras aligned by the Inner Earth beings. And without further ado, hello, Debbie. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I feel like now we're all starting to meet each other. Everything's just picking up so quickly, and we all have a little piece to the puzzle. So
yeah, totally. Yeah. It's so exciting. Every day I meet more and more star seeds, and it's just every one of them enriches my life in some way, even if it's just a brief contact. So I appreciate your interest in me and my story, because it was what started my whole journey pretty much.
Yeah, and your story is pretty fascinating. So I first discovered you on Gaia channel, actually, and I was just getting into, all of this just started happening for me in the past 2 years, learning about the Akashic Records, and that's how I came across you. And I loved your story, and it really resonated with what I was feeling drawn to.
Yeah,
as well.
Definitely.
Beautiful. Yeah. So do you want to tell us a little bit about when did this happen for you? Because this came a little bit later in life, right?
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want to kind of tell us about that?
Yeah. So just to kind of preface, my experience, I spent, almost 50 years just being totally unawakened. I was just living a 3D life. I was a military veteran. I worked for public health. So that was for the local government here in Colorado, Colorado Springs specifically, for a number of years. And I just had no interest, UFOs is what's that? It was just stuff, my family didn't talk about. We were raised Roman Catholic, so we were raised that the physical world was everything, so unlike, I think some folks that maybe had parents that were kind of spiritual. I mean, my parents were into religion, but not spirituality as you and I know it, so so just to kind of catch up to where I had my experience, I was actually semi-introduced to this world by my now partner, significant other, Terry. I've been with Terry for 20 years. But when I first started dating him back in the early 2000s, I don't know, we've been together a while. I noticed that he was really interested in the paranormal. He liked paranormal, information and articles, and he was really into the UFOs. And so I would read the articles out of curiosity, but I was still very skeptical. I just had no, interest. I mean, there was a mild, I think, curiosity, but I just didn't believe they were real. I thought there was some sort of explanation for this phenomena. So I was the last person that I thought would ever have an extraterrestrial experience. And, as you're kind of going through this and you look back on things, it's kind of like you see kind of like the breadcrumbs, leading you up to your experience. But at the time, it was just really kind of random. So back in 2012, I actually, I was very concerned, I was starting to get exposed to, I think, more information about the Mayan calendar, about, things that were happening on the planet. And I was very concerned. I I was kind of a fearful person anyway, and I thought, the planet was going to hell in a handbasket. So I sent out this massive prayer to the universe one night. One night I just couldn't sleep. I was pretty much praying all night. I was praying all night, asking the guides and um, asking, the higher dimensional realms for assistance for planet Earth. I was particularly concerned with the environment because it seemed like there was a lot of animal, species that were becoming extinct, and and there was a lot of suffering on the planet. I was concerned for the people too, and so I just kept sending out this prayer, and I sent it out to everybody. I sent it out to Jesus, Mother Mary, the Ascended Masters, angels, and even galactic brothers and sisters. And I didn't even know they existed. I just threw them in there at the last minute. So,
oh, wow. Like your body knew, you already knew
I
without
think
you knowing.
on some level I already knew, but I just kind of just, why not, send it out to them too. So eventually, I did, I just, said the prayer. The next day things were back to normal, and I just forgot about it, just like everything else. So 2 weeks went by. So this was in May. 2 weeks went by, and then around the end of May, I went to sleep as normal. I think I was still recovering from a minor back surgery. It was like a few days after the surgery. I went to sleep, and when I came to, I was in a different consciousness. It looked really different. And a lot of people have asked me, like, oh, was it just a crazy dream? And I said, no, it was too real to be a dream. Even lucid dreams, they have like that dream-like quality to it, but this felt like a hyper reality. It felt like everything was more real than 3D real. I don't know if you've ever experienced that when you had your experience, but it was, the colors were more brilliant, the details were sharper, there was auras coming from everywhere. I mean, it was just like a different reality. And so I knew that, okay, I'm someplace different. And I looked around, and it looked like a starcraft. It just looked like a starship. Unlike, I think, what's depicted in popular sci-fi movies and shows, this starship was not metallic. There was no metallic components to it. It seemed like it was comprised of light and plasma, or some sort of material that I didn't recognize. It was some sort of technology beyond what I could comprehend, being an Earth person. So
yeah, the ships that I've seen, they defy all
you
logic.
can't even describe them. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, because people will ask me, what did the ship look like? I said, I can't even. It was organic, yet it was futuristic, but but there was components of it that was beyond description. But I could tell that the ship was was a sentient being. That it had some sort of intelligence, because it was directing me towards like a room of some sort, and so I was just kind of following along. And I could also tell that the ship was quite large. I didn't know how large it was until later on, but it was very large. So the ship led me to this space that the beings within the space called the orientation room. And I asked them, well, what is this room for? And they said, well, it's for orienting Earth souls.
Wow.
Okay. So I guess there's other visitors, so. But when I was in the room, I encountered, I think it was 4 or 5 extraterrestrial beings. And these beings were freaking amazing. Okay. And you could tell by looking at them, they weren't Earth beings. I mean, there was no Earth quality to them. They were slightly humanoid, but that's kind of a loose term because they looked very alien-like. But
the bigger eyes, the bigger eyes.
Yeah, the bigger heads. And they had kind of they had these huge auras. It was just hard to look at them directly because the auras were so bright. And I got the sense that they were pulling their vibration down or their frequency down just to interact with me, so it was just kind of like, well, because I was having a hard time even looking at them. And I would have to sneak glances in the periphery to see what they looked like. And yeah, they had the larger heads, kind of smallish bodies. I mean, but they didn't look like gray aliens. Like I've seen depictions of gray aliens through my hubby's, UFO articles, so I kind of knew what grays looked like. And I was like, these aren't grays, they're way beyond grays. They had kind of bluish, greenish, like kind of a bluish, greenish. I mean, it's hard to tell, but it was kind of bluish, greenish skin tone. They had larger eyes, but the eyes had pupils and irises, and they had very refined features. I mean, it was kind of high cheekbones. Yeah.
Would you say kind of elegant? Elegant,
yeah. I would say much more elegant than your stereotypical gray alien depiction.
Right.
And they had, I don't know, 3 or 4 fingers. I couldn't tell. I mean, their hands look different than ours. Like we have 5 fingers, and I kept looking at their hands like, what's going on with their hands. But I knew they weren't from Earth. And people will often ask me, well, were you scared? And I said, I didn't even have time to be scared. I was just trying to assess the situation, trying to see, what was happening with these beings, what was going on, so.
Wow. And then what did they say to you?
I was formulating questions in my head. So the obvious questions like, where am I? What is this? Why am I here? And even before I would finish the question in my head, and I was even thinking, do they speak English? Can I communicate with them? And even before I would finish the question, they were answering my questions.
Wow.
So they obviously were connecting with me telepathically, and it's so much easier communicating telepathically. It's like, I wish we would do that here on Earth. I mean, I can't wait for the day that we transition to telepathic communications, because you can just share everything, and it's total transparency. There's no deception. When you're able to do that. So they were showing me different images along with, the telepathic answers that they were giving me. So in this room, it was a fairly large room, and they had this holographic sphere in the middle of the room. And they had me in the middle of the sphere, and I was just kind of looking around like, oh, okay. This is really different. Never seen anything like this. And it was even beyond the holograms that you would see like on Star Wars or Star Trek. They seem kind of cheesy compared to what I was experiencing on board the ship. I mean, it felt like you were actually in whatever it was they were depicting, and like you were experiencing it. It was really, but it was kind of like a holographic reality. It was really pretty cool. And the stuff I saw on the ship was so amazing that I still remember it. I mean, there was no way I could make that up. It's just so beyond anything I could even imagine.
Right.
So they were telling me, so I asked them, who are you? And they told me that they were Arcturians from Arcturus, and they were showing the location of Arcturus in the Bodas constellation, in this kind of star map, holographic reality. And then they were answering all my questions. I was in this room for a while because I was asking just one question after another, like, what's going on planet Earth? Why are things so messed up there? Why is there so much suffering? What's this religion thing about? Do you guys have a religion? What's your religion? And they told me they don't have a religion because they have a direct connection with Source. And they said religion was a man-made construct. The one thing they did tell me, and I asked like one question after another, and the one thing they did tell me like 3 or 4 or 5 times was that everything in the 3D is an illusion. It's kind of like a video game. Like we're here kind of playing, it's kind of like a school where we're kind of playing this part and we're learning things. And I said, well, it seems really real. I mean, 3D is real, I mean, it seems real, but they were saying, no, 3D is an illusion. And then, comparatively, when you're in the higher realms, it is an illusion, because when you're in the higher realms, it's a hyper reality. Everything seems very, very real. So, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
I wanted to ask you about that, the illusion thing. If you could go into any more on, did they explain any more on that?
you know what? I was trying to understand it, and they didn't really go into a lot of explanation. I guess maybe they figured I'd figure it out in the long run, but I think it's like a false matrix construct, and I mean, because I would just remember when I was on board the ship, I kept saying, "Well, everything seems so real. How can it be an illusion?" I mean, when I, I'm here, by my desk, I can touch my desk. I mean, it feels solid. So I think they meant that it was a false matrix construct, that it was created. It's a lower dimensional reality that was created to play out certain lessons or have certain experiences, and that we're all kind of playing this duality game, and so obviously, so you and I are of the light, and there's others that are of the dark, so we're kind of all playing out this game, and but yeah, that's a question that I have had for many, many years, because I didn't quite understand, So, um, but they showed me other things too when I was on board the ship. I mean, and they told me about, because I asked them, "What's my connection? Why am I here? I'm nobody. I'm not anybody special, and so they were telling me that, um, that I was there because I was actually part of their family, their soul family, and that I had chosen to be there on a big mission, but I had forgotten my mission. So it's kind of like their way of reminding me that, hey, you're here on a mission. You're not just an Earth human. You're an Arcturian soul. And they told me an interesting thing about my Arcturian heritage. They said I came from a long line of scientists, ambassadors, and historians, which I thought was kind of funny, because even in my Earth family, we do have a lot of scientists and historians, in my Earth family. But I don't know about ambassadors, but definitely some college professors and doctors and stuff. So it was kind of interesting, and they told me all about that. Genetically, I also have, my physical body contains Arcturian genetics, which is why I was able to incarnate in the family that I did. And they showed me, I think, a past life where there was some Arcturian scientists that were visiting Earth, and they crash landed in central Italy, which is where part of my family's from. So they started the whole Etruscan civilization in order to see if they could sustain like a really spiritual civilization on planet Earth, it was just a whole big experiment. That's why the Etruscans just disappeared. They didn't get assimilated into the Roman culture like people think, So so there was like this whole and then the other thing they told me that was really fascinating too was I was a very fearful person. I was afraid for myself. I was afraid that things would happen. And they told me not to be fearful. They said that everybody in my family was protected. And I thought they meant my Earth family, but when I thought about it, I realized, I think they showed me an image in, telepathically, and they meant my entire Starseed Lightworker family. All of us here on planet Earth are protected. We're here under the, divine protection, so that made me feel a lot better. I was like, oh, why do I need to be fearful? I mean, I got these magnificent beings that, are looking out not just for me, but, for my whole Starseed, Lightworker family, so
That's beautiful.
there was other things they told me too. They showed me images of a future Earth, what that was going to look like, because I was very concerned about the environment. I was very concerned about things that, might happen here and there. And, they were just like, they were just patiently answering all my questions. They had a sense of humor. So sometimes they would poke fun at me, but in a cute kind of fun way, because of some of the silly questions I was asking. But it was just but that wasn't the whole experience. It seemed like I was on board this ship for a while because I don't know. I think I was gone for 8 hours, by human time, because it was during my dream time when this was happening. But it felt like I was there for a long time. It's kind of like when you're in higher realms, there is no linear time. So it's kind of hard to quantify the time, on that level. But they showed me around the ship, so they had all these amazing spaces and rooms. There was one room in particular that I remembered because it had like, as soon as I walked in, it turned purple, and purple's my favorite color, and it was showing images of Asian landscapes, which I think were depictions of paintings I have painted in a past life.
Wow.
And I asked, well, why is this room doing this? And they said, well, it's responding to what you find relaxing, or what what makes you feel, relaxed or good, so I thought that was really interesting. Then they kind of cut me loose. They said something about, we're going to have you just, you're welcome to just explore the ship on your own. We have other things to do. So I was like, oh, okay,
Wow.
And I was kind of sad, because I was like, oh, I like these beings, I mean, when you're in the presence of Arcturian beings, all you feel is this immense love energy. I mean, it's just love, acceptance, I mean, all of it. I mean, it's kind of hard to feel fearful when you're in the presence of these beings, so I was kind of sad, that they were kind of letting me on my own, so I was kind of wandering around the ship, and I happened upon this really huge central portion of the ship, and it was humongous. It was like several stories long. It was like, I don't know, or tall, I guess. It was like unlike anything I've ever seen. It was very organic, but yet there was kind of a structure to it. It's kind of hard, and there was hundreds of extraterrestrial beings that were wandering in the space, walking around, meeting with each other. And I could tell that there was different species of beings. So they weren't all Arcturians, so
okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask next. This have been like a Galactic Federation ship where there's all of
seemed like it. Yeah. It
seemed,
it seemed like it was Galactic Federation, because it was like a bunch of different beings. And it was interesting, even as I was looking at them, I was like, oh, there's a Syrian person, and there's a Pleiadian. I don't know how I knew this, it was just like I would just see these beings, and I kind of knew what race they were. Within this huge atrium, and you have to keep in mind that this ship was city sized. It was huge. It was a huge ship. So within the atrium space, there was light shafts that would take us, from one, it was kind of like a rainbow light that would take beings from one end of the atrium to another. Which I thought was, I've never seen anything like it. I called it the light escalator because I didn't know what else to call it, but it was actually like a shaft of light, and it was rainbow hued. I mean, it was really beautiful, and beings were just kind of
rainbows a lot
across the space on this.
Well, what was that? Sorry, I missed that.
I'm sorry. Beings were being transported across the space on this light shaft, which I thought was the coolest thing ever. So I wanted to go on that light shaft. So I kept trying to get on one, but it kept throwing me off. Like I said, can't make this stuff up. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, so I was like, what am I doing wrong? I'm going on this thing, and it's not, I'm seeing other beings being transported, but I'm not able to be transported. And I was thinking, maybe it's because I'm human, I'm from Earth, and the third or fourth time I tried, I got caught by a being that was Pleiadian. He was a very tall male being. Pleiadians are beautiful when you encounter them. I mean, even beyond like by Earth standards, it's like when you encounter a Pleiadian being, they're quite striking. I think it's like the luminosity of them. There's a very luminous quality to these beings, you know. So I kept staring at this being. I was like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this, you know. Never seen Earth males look like this, you know. And to describe this male, he was tall. He must have been at least, I don't know, 7 feet tall, maybe. I don't know. I mean, he seemed very tall. He was wearing some sort of a jumpsuit, but it was kind of silver in color, had kind of like strands of metallics, like almost like it was kind of a bio, I don't know, a mechanical aspect of the suit that he had on, but and it you know, looked like a jumpsuit. I don't know how else to describe. And it was, you know, kind of form fitting but not tight, you know. And he had kind of light colored hair. I mean, I couldn't tell if it was blonde or light brown, but he had blue green eyes. I mean, and their features are, you know, they have larger eyes. I mean, slightly larger. I mean, still kind of proportionate to their face, but it's just the luminosity. It's like they glow. I don't know. It's like, you know, I've never seen a man glow, you know, like this. So he was telepathically telling me that the reason why I was unsuccessful on the light shafts was because I wasn't setting intention on where I wanted to go. I was just, you know, stepping on it. So this is a metaphor for life, right? You know, so, you know, you got to set intention first, otherwise you're not going to manifest anything, you know. So, you know, so he told me, you know, just tell the light shaft, you know, where you want to go, and then step on it. You know, and I'm like, okay, you seem to know what you're doing, so I guess I'll do what you're doing, you know. So, so I set intention. I said I want to go exactly there. Stepped on the shaft, and it was transporting me across the room, and I was super excited. You know, I was like, oh my God, it was like, oh, and then I woke up and I was back in my bed.
Oh, bummer.
I know, it's like, go figure, right? Yeah, I was having fun. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna be in this realm having a good time, and then back to 3D.
Wow. Do you happen to know around where that ship was?
My understanding is it was in our solar system, probably located, I think they told me it was between the asteroid belt and Jupiter, where a lot of the Galactic Federation ships are. I don't know if it's the actual Athena that, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, or if it was another ship. I mean, they didn't really give the ship a name, but it was an amazing ship. I mean, I'd never seen anything like that. It's like, yeah. And I knew after I woke up, you know, and I was back in my bed, that my life was never going to be the same. It's like, you just know, you know, like you're not the same person, you know, after having an experience like that, you know. And so, of course, the first person I told was my loving partner, Terry.
I bet he was excited.
Actually, he didn't believe me at first. He thought I had a dream. He just thought I had a crazy dream, and I kept telling him, no, it wasn't a dream. It was. And then I was telling, I only told like maybe a handful of people in the next 2 years after my experience. I actually had a second experience on board that ship. I mean, I didn't just have one, which was one in itself was amazing, but the second experience, so that happened in May 2000, and probably the end of May, I would say, and I turned 50 in July. Okay, so that was like on my 49th birthday. No, I mean, before my 50th birthday, I was 49. Then, and then the second experience I had was in December of 2012. Again, it was kind of the same scenario. I went to sleep, woke up in this alternate reality, or my consciousness came to in this, alternate reality, and I was on board the same ship. I recognized the orientation room, and instead of the Arcturians, I was interacting with that Pleiadian man that helped me with the light shaft, and a Pleiadian female. But the Pleiadian man was the one that was telepathically communicating with me. The female didn't really say anything. She was just sitting there beside him. And like I said, magnificent beings. I don't know. I mean, this is like all you can do is stare at them. So it seemed like they had like a tougher time keeping me there, because he kept saying, you need to pay attention because I need to get this information to you fast, because I don't know how much longer I can hold you there. We're having trouble holding the lower frequencies. So the Arcturians seemed like they had an easier time holding me there for a while. So I was like, okay, you have my attention. What do you want to say? And basically, he was telling me more personal information about certain family members. My father had committed suicide in 2007, and I was raised Roman Catholic. So in the Roman Catholic religion, it's believed that if you commit suicide, you go to hell. But the Pleiadian man was telling me that there was no such thing as hell, and that my father was actually being debriefed, like energetically, like he was in this debriefing stage or restructuring. I don't know. They had a term for it that was really interesting. They said that's what happens to souls that, I guess commit suicide or check out. They don't get punished. They just get reassigned or debriefed. Because they broke us, they broke a contract, soul contract, so, and they said something about that he'll have to do some spiritual work or they called it spiritual labors, which I thought was kind of weird, but, and they kept calling him Little Hercules, which I don't know. I think it was my father loved Greek mythology, so I don't know. Yeah. So, but it sounded like they knew him, and they said, don't worry, your father's soul is okay. And then the other thing they told me was about my cat Piglet. Piglet was an actual registered therapy animal. She and I were an animal assisted therapy team. We worked quite a few humanitarian projects throughout the Front Range of Colorado. And they told me that, and my cat Piglet is very unusual. I mean, she's one of the few cats that she seems to be very aware of her surroundings, and you can take her anywhere. She's like, okay, I'm here connecting with these people, doing my thing. And she had this kind of healing quality on, when we did the therapy visits with folks, people would start crying when they were holding her. And, it was really amazing. We worked with a lot of Alzheimer's patients, and we worked with the Wounded Warrior Project at Fort Carson, which was a military base in Colorado Springs. We also did Pause to Read, which was a reading program with the local library district. And I mean, we did a lot of projects. The main group we worked with was the American Red Cross, because they did have an animal assisted therapy program. So yeah, this cat was amazing, and she was one of only, I think, 4 registered therapy cats that were registered in the state of Colorado. Most of them were dogs, so a lot of times we worked alongside dogs, because sometimes we work in teams with other teams, so, and she was okay with the dogs as long as they didn't get too much in her face. She was like, hey, if you respect my boundaries, we're cool,
Cool cat.
Yeah, which is so unlike a cat. Yeah. So the Pleiadian man was telling me that Piglet was not really a cat, that she was a Pleiadian High Council member that had decided to incarnate as a cat, in order to be of service to the planet, but not have to make like a 80-year contract with the planet. She was just here to, I guess, mainly to train me. So she was like my teacher, and mainly what she was training me on was how to be of service, because we did this work for 6 years. I mean, it was a long time.
Wow.
And she taught me a lot, so it made total sense to me. I was like, oh yeah. I mean, because I always kind of felt like she's a very unusual cat. I don't know. I mean, and she was a hairless cat, so that in itself made her unusual. But
wow.
But yeah, we did that work, and I kind of consider that my precursor training to doing the work that I'm currently doing now, because I had to learn how to be of service and to be humble and not to, just to, I don't know, just to be of service to the community, with no expectations of rewards or recognition or anything like that, so.
That's amazing.
And we did this on our own time. We weren't being paid, so, and I worked a 40-hour-a-week job. So it was totally on my own time. I was doing this work. So they were telling me about Piglet, getting back to the extraterrestrial visit. And then the third person they told me about was about a friend of mine that I was actually going to have lunch with the next day. And they said, oh, your friend is connected to she's a Pleiadian starseed, and she's been trying to contact us. And we just want you to let your friend know that we received her transmissions, but we weren't able to reply because her vibration is too low.
That's a really, really, really good point. So I help teach people how to make contact with beings. Yeah, and that's one of the things. You have to raise your vibration, because they'll, like what you said, the Arcturians kind of lowered theirs, so they're very high vibe, and they'll meet us halfway, but we gotta still meet them.
Exactly, and that's what I tell my folks too. The clients that work with me, because they always ask me, well, how can I contact with my star family? And I tell them, you're going to have to raise your vibration. You're going to have to do everything you can, because they're not going to go all the way down to, your level. You're going to have to meet them halfway, So I'm glad you brought that up, because, that was a lesson for me too, so, so the next so then, again, I woke up, I was back in my bed, I was like, oh, wow, another crazy experience, So the next next day I did meet with my friend, and I told her what happened. I said, I had a visit, I had another visit, and I told her that the Pleiadians got her messages, but they couldn't reply. And she says, oh my God, how did you know? I didn't ever told you, I said, well, they knew you were sending them messages, so they're very tuned into our frequency. They know, like the Arcturians, because one of the things the Arcturians told me in the first visit was that the reason why they brought me up was because of that prayer. They heard my prayer, and they were very impressed by it. That I was very concerned for planet Earth. Had a selfless concern for it. So that's another lesson that I oftentimes tell people, is that if you're wanting contact just for ego purposes, or for an or curiosity, or for an interesting story to tell your friends and family, they're not going to connect with you. Okay. If you're wanting contact because you're really wanting to be of service, you really want to step into your mission, then, they'll definitely work with you, with that. I don't know if you've experienced that as well, but,
oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And on my channel, we're very much about like the personal development and connecting. Like I help people connect with their star families to help them on their ascension, to help them develop their gifts, because they just, like, once you hook up with your star family, like I'm sure after you went up to see the Arcturians, your psychic gifts went way up.
Went way up. I mean, it was like before I had no gifts. I mean, I had no game, no game, so no gifts, no game. Afterwards, it was like my extrasensory perception expanded, 100-fold. Like all of a sudden, I was like seeing auras around everything. I was seeing auras around people, and I was having ultra dimensional experiences. Before I never saw UFOs, and then after that I was seeing UFOs all the time. Wow. Telepathically communicating with these UFOs. I had experiences where I walked into this one Starbucks. I think, getting ready to get off work and walked into the Starbucks, and I was able to read everybody's thoughts. And it was a very busy Starbucks. I think there was at least 50 people in the Starbucks. It was a pretty large one. And I was just overwhelmed because a lot of humans don't have good thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
They have very negative thoughts. And I just felt bombarded with negativity. And I was like, turn it off. I was telling my guys, turn it off, turn it off. I don't want to hear. It felt like an infringement on privacy too. I don't know. But I think if they were having loving, happy thoughts, it would be different. But a lot of people were thinking negatively, mostly about themselves. Yeah. And some were thinking negatively about their bosses or their spouses, or I don't know. But I was running out. I ran out to Starbucks, and as I was running down the street, this was in downtown Colorado Springs. That's where I'm from originally. I actually live in Castle Rock now. That's just south of Denver. But as I was passing down the street, I was hearing people's thoughts, and some people were thinking about their vacations, or it was kind of like, this was in downtown, so it was a business district, so. But then there was some that had very negative thoughts. So I just told my guys, please turn it off. I don't want this ability. Not now. Maybe,
maybe they were just showing you what is possible. Because there were some days whenever I was being trained by the Star beings after I started having UFO experiences.
Yeah.
There's just hypersensitive to everything. And it was overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. Yeah. And I think the other lesson in it for me was that we can't become a telepathic, civilization until people get more aligned with the love consciousness, until they get aligned with the 5D, because otherwise we'll be infecting each other with negative energy. So I kind of felt like, well, I just can't go there yet. And there was other experiences too. You asked me about galactic history, so I don't know if you want me to segue into that, but
yeah, that would be perfect. So, so that's what you mostly that's a big part of what you do now, and you were talking about before where suddenly you were like downloaded with this information, like
totally,
the Galactics. So I find that so fascinating. Whenever I was first meeting my star family, they were showing me some history of Earth, and I see some things through the Galactics. So I'm just curious.
Yeah. So after my extraterrestrial contact experience, I had all these multidimensional experiences, but one of the other things that was happening to me a lot is I was getting massive downloads of information. I'd wake up and I'd have information in my head that I knew I didn't learn anywhere, or I would experience like visions of galactic wars, and all of a sudden I knew all the star systems. Like, I've never taken astronomy in my life, and I knew astronomy. I mean, I knew all the star systems, at least the major ones in, our galaxy, that, have a connection with planet Earth. And so at first I thought I was going crazy. I was like, what the heck is this? So I started doing research. So I was like, I need to collaborate with other information out there to see if what I'm picking up is real. Is it just me making it up? And there was other people out there that were, saying similar things. Alex Collier is the one that comes to mind, and Dolores Cannon, and Lissa Royale Holt, Andrew Bartis. I mean, a lot of people, were kind of saying similar things. So. I actually, around this time too, I actually started taking a lot of spiritual courses, so for the first 3 years after my experience, I didn't go public with my story. I was too afraid to, I thought people would think I was insane, so I just took spiritual courses because I was just trying to, kind of deep dive into what was happening. I was just trying to have a greater understanding of it. And I took all kinds of courses across the board, you know. Fortunately, I live in Colorado where we have a plethora, we have a, you know, very thriving spiritual community here, you know. So
Mhm.
there's, you know, a lot of options, you know, for different trainings and teachings and courses and classes, you know. I mean, we have it all here, you know. So I was just doing the smorgasbord, you know. I was just like, you know, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's crystal healing. I don't care if it's Native American medicine. I don't care if it's harmonic astronomy. I'm just going to take it all, you know. So,
Yeah.
oh, I even took Dr. Stephen Greer's remote viewing class, which was really interesting. That was an
Oh,
interesting.
fun. That sounds fun.
It was fun. Yeah, it was like a 4-hour long class. That was a crazy class. And it was all online. I mean, I could have gone to Boulder. I think he offered it in Boulder, but I
Mhm.
just decided to join online. But
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so I took some really interesting courses. And speaking of I think you and I were talking about our Arcturian guides, how they like to give us little
Mhm.
little,
Homework?
little missions, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, my guides did that. I remember they were telling me, you know, to meditate. And I told them, oh, I hate meditation. I like my monkey mind. Okay. I like,
Mhm.
and so they were like, no, you need to learn to meditate. So they sent me to stay with the Buddhist monks in Crestone, Colorado. Crestone, Colorado is like the Sedona of Colorado. It's a very spiritual place
Wow.
in the San Luis Mountains, you know. So, and there's quite a few, you know, Buddhist centers there and ashrams and, you know,
Mm.
spiritual centers there, you know. So my husband and I stayed a few days with the Buddhist monks, and we had meals with them and did their practices and did all the meditations with them. So I got firsthand training on how to meditate. Okay, so
Wow.
I still don't like it, but I do it every day now.
Yeah.
And
You
then
have to. I don't know if there's a way to really get around it.
no, you just have to do it, and that's what my guides were telling me. The other crazy thing they had me do was I was meditating, I was connecting with my guides, and they
Mhm.
showed me this vision of flying a kite, and I became the kite, and I was part of the kite, and I was like, "What the heck is this?"
Mhm.
I've never flown a kite in my life, not even when I was a kid. And so they were telling me that I needed to go fly a kite in the San Luis Mountains. So this was another trip, but
Mhm.
so it just so happened that a friend of mine was having a women's retreat in, you know, Crestone, which is in the San Luis Mountains area. So I said, "Hey, you know, that sounds perfect. I can fly my kite and do the retreat, and you know, it'd be really cool."
Mhm.
So I went there and flew the kite. I actually got a kite from Amazon. You know, I just thought, you know, what the heck? I'll just get a cheapo kite from Amazon, and I flew the sucker, and I was getting massive downloads. My understanding was the reason why they wanted me to fly the kite was because there was an Arcturian portal in that area, and they were sending like energetic information. It was kind of like the whole story of Benjamin Franklin when he was flying the kite and his kite got struck by lightning. That's what it felt like. It felt like I was getting massive energy downloads
Wow.
from this kite. You know, from the I would say the Arcturian portal through the kite to me. And
Wow.
that was when they first showed me my mission. You know, where they told me exactly what I was going to be doing,
Mhm.
um, and you know what how things were going to progress going forward. And even back then, this was back in I think in 2013 or 14. I'm trying to remember. They were telling me I was going to be a public figure, and that I was going to become fairly well known. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh no, no, oh heck no, no. No, I'm an introvert, okay, and I'm an
Yeah.
INFJ, introverted. Don't like to even speak in public.
Yeah.
And I started speaking about my story, I would say probably about 2015. I think it was
Mhm.
December 2015 when
Mhm.
I started. But getting back to the galactic history part, I was getting massive downloads of galactic history.
Mhm.
And I was just, where is this kind of information coming from? Is it real? And
Mhm.
when I started doing Akashic Records readings in 2014, I was connecting with all this information, and I was getting a lot of detail. I mean, and I don't know. It's like working with the Akashic Records. You know this because you do the same thing. It's amazing. You get information all the time. And
yeah, I was wondering, so like for a lot of like my clients and what I've seen for myself, and you've been doing this longer, I'm sure. Well, I was curious about, well, the Lyra Wars comes up a lot. And then
comes up a lot for me too.
yeah, that seems to be like kind of the original, a long
The
time
original
ago.
trauma, the original catastrophe. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the Orion Wars comes up sometimes.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know as much details on that one. I know I've been a part of it in some way, but I was kind of curious. So what do you see as kind of like a big story and big link that happens for a lot of people? So the Lyra Wars, and then after that, can you share a little bit of
Oh yeah,
light?
sure.
Okay.
This will have to be the abridged version of
Yeah.
the whole story, but so I think the reason why the Lyran Wars come up so much is because all of us as humans, we all have genetics that came from Lyra. So when Lyra is it's actually a small constellation, and it actually does look like a kite in the sky. I mean, it's supposed to be a lyre, but I don't know. When I see it, it looks like a kite. But
It does.
yeah. So so when Source decided to split itself off, and it was our universe's turn to have this descent into physicality, there were galactic, ethereal beings in Galactic Center. They call them, also known as the Elohim or the co-creators, that was creating a physical reality that they wanted to create this, for all of us to be on this journey, of separation from Source, of descent into physicality. And so they chose Lyra because it had the conditions most favorable for physical life. I mean, even now, Lyra has a lot of inhabitable planets. It's one of the constellations that have the most inhabitable exoplanets, in our galaxy. So they created beautiful paradise planets, and out of that, they created 2 human races. I think there was some hybridization going on. So I don't know if you've seen this in the records, but there were cat genetics, that was being implemented, and avian genetics. And I mean, there was kind of some hybridization at first, but then eventually they came up with not just 1, but 2 human races. The first one being the white Lyrans that were more aligned with the Father God consciousness, and the blue Vega people that were more Mother Goddess consciousness. So they were more of a representation of that. So all of our genetics, actually, our physical genetics, stemmed from these 2 races. If we're human, we probably have genetics from either Lyra or Vega. Okay. And so all of us as souls decided, as ethereal souls, we decided, hey, I want to experience this physical reality, kind of like, going on like a massively incredible like ride in Disneyland or something, like you just want to experience, something interesting and magical, and these planets were beautiful. I often like to compare the planets to Avatar, because that's the closest depiction I've been able to find on what these planets were probably like. But the beings there, these were higher dimensional humans, so they weren't 3D humans. So they had abilities beyond what we have here on Earth. So they lived peacefully for thousands of years. They had this really nice thing going on. I mean, it was beautiful, and then the Dracos, so the Draconians from Draco, so Draco is actually located right next door to Lyra. And I often kind of question, the co-creators, like, why would you create a light system right next door to a dark system when you know that it's a dark system? Like, was this purposeful? Was this meant to happen? my thought is they definitely did it on purpose, because they wanted to see how the light was going to interact with the dark, or the dark was going to interact with the light, so so the Draconians were actually kicked out of a different universe. So they're not from the same consciousness as we are. I mean, they're part of Source too, don't get me wrong, but so they saw Lyra, and they saw their abundant planets rich with resources, and thought, we need to conquer Lyra, so so they deceived the Lyrans. I mean, it was bad. They deceived them big time, because they reached out and said, hey, we're your next door neighbors. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here, but obviously, but we're here, we notice your planets have some resources. We could use some of those resources. So we'll trade some of our technology, because we've had technology for billions of years, for some of your resources. It looked like a really cool deal, for the Lyrans. It's like, who couldn't turn that down? Especially when they were trying to develop their civil, their technology, I mean, they were just implementing technology, into their civilization. So, they get advanced, technology. Who was going to turn that down? So I don't necessarily blame the Lyrans, that much. I mean, yeah, they were short-sighted. Maybe they should have vetted these beings, but
nothing like that had ever happened before. I had
exactly.
I had a spontaneous past life regression. I've had 2 of those, actually, like 3 now, and one of them was on Lyra whenever the attack happened. And I just felt so, like, I just knew that's where all of my trust issues have come from.
Totally. I had an experience on Lyra too. It was on the Avalon planet, and I was there as an Arcturian ambassador, trying to help the Lyrans. And I think I was trying to help some Lyrans get on board the ships. And when I was transporting some of them back, I got bombed. That's how I got killed. So I actually got killed. Talk about massive trust issues, okay, and feelings of abandonment, okay. So, so I had to work through a lot of that trauma, even in this life, So,
it's crazy. It comes up for
a lot of people, actually,
right, most of them, and it's something that we still have to heal. Like, we still have to heal it. So it was,
I know this happened like what, millions of years ago, and we're still healing it. I mean, it's like, what? It's like, but it makes sense, because I think in a way, when we come here to Earth and we're having different, going through all these different lessons, all these different experiences, it's like we're replaying some of the old stuff, traumas from past lives, and it's like it's giving us an opportunity to do things better, to maybe. Do things differently, maybe, maybe not necessarily better, but
that makes sense. So then after like the attacks on Lyra, then everybody kind of spread, throughout the galaxy.
So Lisa Royale Holt, who I think is an amazing channeler. I mean, she's written some really amazing books. Including the Prism of Lyra, which I think everybody should read, but she said that there was 50 million Lyrans that lost their lives. And there was complete planets that were destroyed. And these were all collaborated with what I saw in the records, that it was a massive genocide, pretty much. But there were survivors, so the Lyrans had at least enough technology where they had starships, and there were survivors, so these survivors dispersed out throughout the galaxy and created new civilizations. So they created the Syrian civilizations, the Pleiadian civilizations, Andromeda. I think Arcturus is kind of an outlier. I don't see Arcturus as being genetically or related to the Lyrans. I kind of see them more as an outlier, a different consciousness group. I don't know if you see that as the same, but
I felt that.
Yeah, kind of like the overseers. They're kind of like the overseers, the guides, the guardians, that sort of thing. But there was also outposts that were being created, civilizations created in Orion, because you asked about the Orion Wars. So Orion is such a large constellation. It's got a lot of stars. Okay, Orion's huge. It's so freaking large that I call it the melting pot of the galaxy because there's all kinds of different beings in Orion. So I kind of jokingly compare it to the original Star Wars movie, the cantina scene where you see all the crazy aliens in the cantina. That's how Orion was like. Okay, they had a lot of humanoids, but also a lot of other beings. So my understanding from the records is that the belt stars, so that was Analam, Analtak, and Mintaka, were the freedom zone. Okay, that was where the people that wanted to be self-sovereign were located. But the outlier star systems, that was like Bellatrix, Betelgeuse, Rigel, Safe, all of those were reptilian outposts or gray alien outposts. They had actually quite a few grays in Orion because it's located very close to Zeta Reticuli. So there was a lot of gray influence, a lot of insectoids there too. So that was kind of a common thing. So you had these two. So though they were like the Empire. Okay. So I mean, I'm going to use Star Wars terms. Okay. Because I'm a big Star Wars fan. So I love Star Wars, especially Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda's he's like my spirit animal. Okay.
Me too. I just watched Star Wars for the first time and I fell in love with Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda's pretty awesome. Yeah. So, so anyway, getting back to the regular Star Wars, so you had the Empire. So that was the Draconian Empire that wanted to take over the whole system. But then you had these rebels that were in, the Belt Stars that were like fighting against them, so there was constant conflicts, wars. This was going on for millions and millions of years. So it's even beyond what we experienced here on Earth. So these Black League resistance fighters, as I guess that's what they're called, or what they used to call them. These were in the Belt Stars, reached out to the Galactic Federation asking them for help. So that's how you and I, and because there's a lot of us that are not from Orion, but we remember Orion. Isn't that kind of interesting that, because I know I'm not from Orion, I don't even think I had incarnations there, but I know I've spent time there, and so my understanding was that the Galactic Federation headquarters in the Orion project was in Mintaka, which was the highest vibrational star system in the Orion sector. Okay, so that was, so it was kind of like that was their main outpost or their main headquarters. And so there was a lot of us starseeds that had missions in Orion, kind of like we did here on Earth, So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, we were just here, we were there trying to help the Orion people, achieve self-sovereignty, just like we're here on Earth doing the same thing, So, so I was like, oh, this history repeats itself,
Yeah, the thoughts are coming together now.
Yeah, so I don't know if this helps you or helps your audience, but it's kind of like it's kind of like the same story, kind of over and over again, maybe different iterations of it, but. But I think in Orion, we were successful. We were able to eventually get Orion to light consciousness. So a lot of us that worked, the Orion missions, we decided, hey, we were asked to help planet Earth, and it was like, hey, I guess, so we volunteered to be here. So Dolores Cannon calls us to 3 waves of volunteers, and I'm definitely first wave. Okay. You're probably what, 3rd wave? I don't know. You look so young, but maybe 2nd wave, maybe young 2nd wave.
I think I'm 2nd wave.
Yeah. You look so young though. So there's, many of us that, decided to be here on planet Earth to assist planet Earth to achieve self-sovereignty.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we've done this way more times than just for Earth. I also wanted to ask, do you ever see anything in the Akashic Records or have anything come up for anybody about secret space programs?
Yeah, with some clients I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just starting to discover more of that, and I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, it's different. It's different. That's all I can say. And some of it is not aligned with the light. Okay, it's not.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I have mixed thoughts about it. I don't really think it's all beneficial or all benevolent. I kind of get an AI component with it, like it's an excuse to implement AI and maybe get more control over, people on the planet. That will be totally on the 3D level. Obviously, those of us that are on the spiritual path will be moving past that. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, it's definitely different. But yeah, some of my clients had dealings with this program or with the MK Ultra program, some of the secret governmental programs. So, I've had to delve into their records to see, what the connection was. And I'm not even really an expert in any of this stuff. I have to just mainly glean information from the records, because
you just get little pieces,
just enough to help my client, maybe get some understanding of why things happened the way they did, or what kind of contracts they created, that sort of thing.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's sort of that information has been coming up more over the last year. So I was just curious if you saw that in others.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of us are being privy to that information. The other program I'm getting more privy to, and I don't know if you are too, is the hybrid program.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's actually that's one kind of cool. I kind of have a lot of respect for those that decided to be part of that program, because that's not an easy program. It's, you're basically donating your genetics to an end cause that you may never see the results of, or if you do, it's just through ethereal means. So.
Yeah, I feel like that the information about and then we'll wrap it up in just a second. The information about the hybrid program just suddenly I feel like there's that's coming up into the awareness a lot.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think it's getting more accepted too. I think at first people were like really afraid of it, and it's actually, I think, being implemented to prepare Earth humans, for our future realities, because, we're not going to be living in the 3D, for much longer, 3D is going to get dissipated from the planet, so, so our human carbon-based bodies are not going to be able to maybe sustain itself in the 5D, so we're going to have to get massive upgrades, so we might need some more genetic manipulation. I don't know, but
right. Yeah, and probably some of the beings that are being born now with all of these different genetics, they will be reintroduced to Earth as we ascend.
Even some of the young kids, I think, are coming in with advanced genetics. I don't know, some of the third wave kids. Holy crap! Some of them are amazing.
Yeah, definitely.
I know. It was like, are you 6 years old or are you 60 years old? You don't talk like a 6-year-old. Okay, so they're very old souls that are coming in, right now.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for coming on. I guess to wrap it up, where can people find you? I know you have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Also, do you want to kind of share like what you're working on,
sure.
what you've got going on, and where people can find you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. People can find me probably mainly on my main website. I just have one website. It's DebbieSolaris.com. So they can find me there. So it's DebbieSolaris.com. And they can find me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Just, write Debbie Solaris, you'll find me. As far as readings, okay, this is my situation with readings right now. I wish I can take new clients. I really do. But I had to close my waiting list because we got over 3,500 people on the list. So if you're not on the list currently, I can't take you on. Sorry. Maybe that'll change in the future. I don't know. And if it does, I'll definitely make a big announcement. But
there's a high demand for it.
Yeah, there is. For the kind of work that you and I do, totally. Yeah. And that's why I keep telling, my followers and clients, like, if you guys want a good gig where you can make some money, and survive while we still have a monetary system, that's going to be going away too, by the way. But
do you have any more thoughts on that?
Yeah, Galactic Galactic Akashic reading is where it's at, because there's not many people that do it, and the few of us that do, we're in high demand, and so I don't really want to promote my readings so much at this time, but I do offer quite a few trainings, like 1-2 hour trainings. There's a training section on my website. We do periodic webinars, and then we post the the videos, the recorded videos on Kajabi, and people can, if they can't make the live, then they can certainly purchase the webinar later. And then I am going to be offering a Galactic Akashic reading course next month, so we're busy preparing for it, or getting it prepared and ready to go, ready to launch. And it's going to be a really amazing 8-week course, very much deep diving into galactic history. Because I don't know about you, but my understanding is that if you don't understand galactic history, it's a little bit more difficult navigating the galactic records. So this is, it kind of gives you some good tools to be very successful in doing that type of connection with the higher realms. And we give you all the tools. We have videos, materials, documents, all kinds of flow charts, everything. So, so this will be a course that'll be offered the middle of next month, I think April 17th. We haven't announced it officially on my website yet, but you can join. If you join my at least my subscriber list, we'll keep you posted. So. So that's pretty much, oh, and I'm going to be at the Sedona Ascension Conference later this week. So I'll be there on Friday. Yeah, I'm leaving on Thursday. I'm leaving Colorado on Thursday, arriving in Sedona late that day. And then I'm going to be speaking at this conference in Sedona on Friday. And I'll have a booth there. I'm going to be selling little Starseed crystal kits. So if you love crystals, come by my booth, and we'll hook you up with some really beautiful crystals. And so yeah, we're gonna have a blast. So and I think there's more to come. I think I don't know, I'm still doing videos with Gaia. So occasionally they'll call me back and have me on their shows. You'll see me on Deep Space this season of Deep Space. So if you're a follower of that show, and then I'm also on Open Minds, so you'll see me on that one. So
all great shows.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me on. It's been a real blast. Thank you.
Yeah. It was so wonderful meeting you. Thank you so much. And just to end the live, if everybody could like this video, share your comments, go check out Debbie on her website and her YouTube channel. Also, I heard you also post some of your Akashic reading sessions there, which is just super fascinating. So go check those out, and I will see you later, Star Brothers and Sisters.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.